flash, when a human's words changed everything, Kira had always been the odd one out among her people. The Valeri were a proud species known for their luminescent skin patterns and graceful movements that resembled flowing water. Their society valued physical perfection above all else, particularly when it came to selecting mates for their complex breeding rituals. Unfortunately for Kira, her bioluminescent patches were dim and irregular compared to the brilliant displays of her peers. Her movements lacked the fluid grace that marked prime breeding candidates, and her slightly smaller stature made her practically invisible during the monthly selection ceremonies. The Valeri homeworld of Luminara was a place of constant competition, where social status was determined by one's reproductive potential. The brightest and most graceful individuals were chosen by the Council of Elders to participate in the sacred breeding pools, where the next generation would be conceived. Those deemed unworthy were relegated to support roles, maintaining the vast underwater cities and tending to the needs of the selected ones. Kira had accepted her fate long ago, working quietly in the bio labs while watching her more gifted peers ascend to positions of honor and respect. Everything changed when the humans arrived. The Terran diplomatic vessel had requested permission to establish a research station on Luminara in exchange for advanced terraforming technology. The Valeri Council agreed, seeing an opportunity to expand their influence beyond their aquatic world. Among the human delegation was Dr. Marcus Webb, a marine biologist who had spent years studying bioluminescent organisms on Earth. His assignment was to learn about Valeri biochemistry and establish collaborative research protocols. Kira first encountered Marcus in the lower levels of the research facility, where she worked cataloging specimens. He was examining samples of Valeri bioluminescent cells under a microscope when she approached to deliver his requested materials. As she set down the container of cellular samples, Marcus looked up, and his eyes widened with genuine amazement. He studied her face and the subtle patterns of light dancing across her skin with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. Instead of the dismissive glance, she was accustomed to receiving. Marcus spoke words that would echo in her mind for cycles to come. He told her that her bioluminescent patterns were absolutely fascinating, unlike anything he had seen before. The way the light shifted and pulsed in irregular waves reminded him of the aurora borealis on Earth. He explained that on his world, such uniqueness would be considered extraordinarily beautiful, and that her patterns told a story of complexity and depth that uniform displays could never match. Kira was stunned. No one had ever described her appearance as anything other than defective. The concept that her irregular patterns could be seen as beautiful rather than flawed was completely foreign to her understanding of herself. Marcus continued explaining that human cultures often celebrated uniqueness and individuality over conformity. He shared stories of how Earth's greatest artists and thinkers were often those who stood apart from the crowd, who saw the world differently than their peers. As days passed, Marcus sought out Kira whenever he visited the research levels. Their conversations grew longer and more personal as she began to share her experiences of feeling inadequate among her own people. Marcus listened with genuine interest and repeatedly expressed his belief that the Valeri society was missing something crucial by valuing only standardized beauty. He pointed out that genetic diversity was essential for species survival, and that her unique traits might represent evolutionary advantages that others lacked. The more they talked, the more Kira began to question everything she had been taught about her worth. Marcus showed her images from Earth of creatures that were considered magnificent despite or perhaps because of their unusual characteristics. He spoke of human cultures that revered scars as marks of strength and celebrated physical differences as signs of character. For the first time in her life, Kira began to wonder if perhaps the problem wasn't with her, but with the narrow-minded standards of her society. Marcus had been on Luminara for 3 months when he made a proposal that would change everything. He suggested that Kira accompany him to Earth as part of a cultural exchange program. The opportunity to study Valari biology in Earth's research facilities would be invaluable, he argued, while also giving Kira a chance to experience a society that might value her unique qualities. The proposal was unprecedented, as no Valari had ever left their homeworld for extended periods. When Kira brought the request to the Council of Elders, they were initially dismissive. Why would the humans want to take someone so obviously defective as a representative of their species? However, Marcus had prepared for this objection. He presented a detailed scientific argument about how Kira's unique bioluminescent patterns could provide insights into evolutionary adaptation that might benefit both species. He emphasized that her irregular patterns might hold keys to understanding how consciousness affected bioluminescent expression. The council was intrigued despite their prejudices. If the humans truly believed Kira possessed valuable scientific properties, perhaps they had been too hasty in their judgment. After lengthy deliberation, they agreed to the exchange on the condition that Kira would return within 1 solar cycle to report her findings. They also insisted that her departure be kept quiet to avoid giving other unsuitable individuals false hope about their own potential. Kira could barely contain her excitement as she prepared for the journey to Earth. Marcus had arranged for her to work alongside leading researchers at the Marine Biology Institute in California, where her unique physiology would be studied while she learned about human approaches to genetic diversity. The prospect of being valued for her differences rather than dismissed because of them filled her with a hope she had never dared to feel before. The journey to Earth took several weeks aboard the human research vessel. During this time, Kira learned more about human culture and began to understand how radically different their approach to individual worth could be. Marcus introduced her to concepts like personal achievement, creativity, and emotional intelligence as measures of value beyond physical appearance. He showed her human art that celebrated imperfection and music that found beauty in discord and asymmetry. When they arrived at the Marine Biology Institute, Kira was amazed by the diversity of the human researchers. Unlike the uniform appearance of the Valari elite, the humans came in countless variations of height, weight, skin color, and facial features. Yet rather than being marginalized for their differences, they seemed to thrive on their uniqueness. Each researcher brought different perspectives and approaches to their work, creating a dynamic environment that was both chaotic and incredibly productive. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the Institute's director, welcomed Kira with genuine enthusiasm. She had studied the preliminary data about Valari bioluminescence and was particularly interested in how emotional states affected the patterns. During their first meeting, she observed how Kira's patterns shifted subtly as she spoke about her experiences on Luminara. The irregular flashes and waves that the Valari considered defective were actually incredibly complex responses to her internal emotional state. As Kira began her work at the Institute, she discovered that her supposedly flawed patterns were actually far more sophisticated than the standardized displays of her peers. While other Valari could produce bright uniform patterns, Kira's irregular bioluminescence responded dynamically to her thoughts and feelings, creating a form of unconscious communication that was both beautiful and scientifically fascinating. The human researchers were captivated by this discovery and began developing new theories about the relationship between consciousness and bioluminescent expression. Valued for who she was, RATHER, then let destined to energy, dismissed for who she wasn't. The humans didn't just tolerate her differences, They celebrated them as evidence of the incredible diversity that made life so remarkable. As months passed, she began to understand that her worth had never been determined by her ability to conform to arbitrary standards, but by her unique contributions to the larger tapestry of existence. The transformation in Kira's confidence was remarkable. As she grew more comfortable with herself, her bioluminescent patterns became even more complex and beautiful. The irregular waves of light that had once embarrassed her now danced across her skin with new vitality, expressing emotions and thoughts with a richness that left the human researchers in awe. She had found her voice not just in the scientific community, but in her own understanding of her place in the universe. When the time came for Kira to return to Luminara, she carried with her not just new scientific knowledge, but a completely transformed sense of self-worth. The shy, insecure individual who had left their homeworld had been replaced by a confident scientist who understood that true value came from within. She had learned that beauty and worth were not universal constants, but cultural constructs that could be challenged and changed. The Council of Elders was shocked by the transformation they witnessed in Kira upon her return. Her bioluminescent patterns had become more vibrant and complex than they had ever seen. More importantly, she carried herself with a confidence and grace that commanded respect. The scientific data she presented about the relationship between consciousness and bioluminescence was groundbreaking and would revolutionize their understanding of their own biology. As Kira shared her experiences with the broader Valari community, she began to plant seeds of change that would grow into a movement for social transformation. Young Valari, who had been dismissed as unsuitable for breeding, began to question why conformity was valued over uniqueness. The rigid social hierarchy that had dominated their society for generations started to crack as individuals began to recognize their own worth beyond arbitrary physical standards. Marcus visited Luminara again several months later to find a society in the midst of profound change. The breeding selection ceremonies had been reformed to value genetic diversity and emotional intelligence alongside traditional physical markers. Kira had become a respected leader in the scientific community, and her unique bioluminescent patterns were now seen as a symbol of the beauty that could emerge from embracing difference rather than suppressing it. The transformation of Valari society was gradual but irreversible. As they began to value uniqueness and individual contribution over conformity, their culture became more vibrant and dynamic. Scientific progress accelerated as diverse perspectives led to breakthrough discoveries. Artistic expression flourished as individuals felt free to explore their unique gifts without fear of rejection. Kira often reflected on how a single human compliment had changed not just her own life, but the entire trajectory of her species. Marcus had seen beauty where others saw only flaws, and his words had given her the courage to see herself through new eyes. The ripple effects of that moment of recognition continued to spread, transforming not just individual lives, but the fundamental values of an entire civilization. Years later, when young Valari asked Kira about the secret to her success, she would tell them about the power of perspective and the importance of surrounding yourself with those who could see your true worth. She had learned that sometimes the most profound changes begin with the simplest acts of recognition, and that a single voice speaking truth could echo across generations to create lasting transformation. The story of Kira and Marcus became a legend among both species, a testament to the power of seeing beyond surface appearances to recognize the deeper beauty that exists within every individual. Their friendship had bridged not just the gap between two worlds, but the even greater chasm between self-doubt and self-acceptance, showing that sometimes the most important journey is the one that leads us home to ourselves.